What if I told you that the problem you're trying to solve isn't actually the problem? That the anxiety keeping you awake, the relationship drama draining your energy, the work stress crushing your spirit, none of these are your real issues. The real problem is something much simpler and much more profound. It's your resistance to what's happening. Right now, as you listen to this, you're probably resisting something. Maybe it's a thought you don't want to have, or a feeling you're trying to push away, or a situation you wish was different. This inner pushing against reality is the hidden source of all your suffering. And here's what's beautiful about this. Once you see it clearly, once you understand how resistance works in your body and mind, you hold the key to a completely different way of being. Before we continue, if you're ready to break free from the repeating patterns that hold you back, check out my free guide, 5 Inner Blocks That Keep You from Deep Spiritual Growth. The link is waiting for you in the top comment below. Think of resistance as a physical force, because that's exactly what it is. When you resist something, you create tension in your body. You literally contract against the experience that's trying to move through you. Imagine trying to hold back a river with your bare hands. The water keeps coming, but you're standing there pushing against it with all your strength. What happens? You get exhausted. You create turbulence. You make the whole situation more chaotic than it needs to be. This is what happens when you resist your thoughts and emotions. Let's say you have a health scare. The doctor mentions something that needs to be checked. Immediately, fear arises. That fear is just energy moving through your system. It's information. It's your body's natural response. But what do most of us do? We resist the fear. We tell ourselves we shouldn't be afraid. We try to think positive thoughts to push the fear away. We distract ourselves. We create a whole secondary layer of suffering on top of the original fear. Now you're not just dealing with the health concern. You're dealing with your resistance to being afraid about the health concern. You're fighting a war on 2 fronts, the external situation and your internal reaction to it. Here's the thing about resistance. It always shows up in your body first. Before your mind even knows what's happening, your shoulders tense up, your jaw clenches, your breathing becomes shallow, your stomach knots. These physical sensations are your early warning system that resistance is arising. The difference between experiencing an emotion and resisting it is like the difference between letting rain fall on you and trying to fight each raindrop. When you just let the rain fall, you get wet. But that's it. When you fight each drop, you exhaust yourself and still get wet. Fear, anger, sadness, anxiety. These are just weather patterns moving through your inner landscape. They have their own natural rhythm. They arise, peak, and naturally dissolve. But when you resist them, you interrupt this natural flow. You trap the energy in your system. Think of it like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. What's the way out of quicksand? You stop struggling, you relax. You let yourself float. The same principle applies to emotional quicksand. When you resist an emotion, you essentially telling life that it got it wrong. You're saying this feeling shouldn't be there. This thought shouldn't have arisen. This situation shouldn't be happening. But reality doesn't negotiate. What's here is here. Your resistance doesn't change what's happening. It just adds a layer of suffering to what's already present. It's like being in pain and then getting angry at yourself for being in pain. Now you have pain plus anger. You doubled your suffering. The energy you put into resistance could be used for something much more useful, like actually dealing with the situation at hand or simply allowing the experience to move through you naturally. Let's look at how this plays out in your relationships. Someone close to you does something that triggers you. Maybe your partner leaves dishes in the sink again, or your colleague takes credit for your idea. What's your first impulse? To resist their behavior, to push back, to make them wrong. But here's what's really happening. You're resisting the fact that this person is being exactly who they are in this moment. You want them to be different. You want reality to be other than what it is. When you resist someone's behavior, you trap yourself in a loop with them. You become reactive. You start managing their actions instead of managing your own inner state. You give them the power to determine your peace of mind. There is an ancient principle that what we resist in others is often a reflection of what we resist in ourselves. The person who irritates you most might be showing you something about your own patterns that you don't want to see. They become a mirror, and resistance keeps you from looking into it clearly. Now let's talk about work stress. You have a demanding deadline. Your boss is breathing down your neck. The pressure is mounting. What happens in your body? Your shoulders creep up toward your ears. Your chest tightens. You start thinking about how unfair this is, how you shouldn't have to deal with this much pressure. Notice what's happening here. There's the external pressure of the deadline, and then there's your internal pressure, your resistance to the external pressure. You're fighting the situation instead of flowing with it. The Taoists understood this perfectly. They observed water and how it moves around obstacles. Water doesn't fight the rock in its path. It doesn't get angry at the rock or try to convince the rock to move. Water simply finds a way around. It yields to overcome. This doesn't mean being passive. This doesn't mean you don't take action. It means you respond from a place of flow rather than fight. You work with what is rather than against what is. When you stop resisting the pressure at work, something interesting happens. You still meet the deadline, but you do it without the internal warfare. You conserve energy. You think more clearly. Your body is constantly giving you feedback about your inner state. When your jaw clenches, that's resistance. When your breathing becomes shallow, that's resistance. When your stomach knots up, that's resistance. These physical signals come before the mental story about why you should be resisting. If you can catch the resistance at body level, you can choose differently. You can breathe into the sensation instead of building a case around it. This is when surrender becomes a superpower, not a weakness. Surrender doesn't mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries or preferences. It means you stop fighting reality long enough to respond from clarity instead of reactivity. When you surrender to what is, you gain access to a different kind of intelligence. Instead of all your energy going into resistance, it becomes available for creative problem solving. You see options you couldn't see when you were busy fighting what was happening. So how do you actually practice this? How do you move from resistance to surrender in the moment when everything in you wants to fight? It starts with awareness. The moment you notice tension arising in your body, pause. Don't try to fix anything yet. Don't try to change the feeling, just notice it. Where is the tension located? How does it feel exactly? This pause between trigger and reaction is where your freedom lives. In that space, you can choose to breathe into the sensation instead of building a story around it. When you feel resistance arising, do a quick body scan. Start at the top of your head and move down. Where are you holding tension? Your forehead, your jaw, your shoulders, your chest, your stomach. Breathe into these areas, not to make the tension go away, but to be present with it, to stop fighting it. This is the beginning of surrender, the willingness to be with what is without immediately trying to change it. You can also use journaling to track your resistant patterns. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I resist today? How did that resistance show up in my body? What would it be like to allow that experience instead of fighting it? The goal isn't to never feel resistance. Resistance is a natural human response. The goal is to notice it quickly and choose not to feed it with your mental energy. Here's what many people fear about non-resistance. They think it will make them weak or passive. They think they'll become a victim of circumstances, but the opposite is true. When you stop wasting energy on fighting what is, you have much more energy available for skillful action. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. You can accept that something is happening without liking it. You can surrender to the present moment while still working to create change. The difference is you're working from flow instead of fight. Remember, the energy you put into resistance doesn't change what's already here. It just creates an additional layer of suffering. When you surrender, you're not giving up your power, you're reclaiming it. Before we wrap up, if you found this helpful and want to go deeper, remember that free download I mentioned, 5 inner blocks that keep you from deep spiritual growth. The link is waiting for you in the top comment below. Your resistance isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. Every time you notice yourself fighting reality, you have an opportunity to practice a different way of being. The situations that trigger your resistance most strongly are pointing you toward your next level of growth. They're showing you where you're still attached to things being different than they are. The practice is simple. Notice resistance without fighting it. Let it be there. Breathe with it. This noticing, this conscious awareness, it's the entire practice. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to fix yourself. You just need to stop fighting what's already here. Peace isn't found by solving all your problems. It's found by changing your relationship to what is.